Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of the Bond Minute, a show/podcast about everything Bond, James Bond. If you're tuning back in from previous episodes of the channel, thanks for joining me again. Or if you're new here, thanks for joining at all. We welcome everyone here. And we just talk about everything Bond. As of the recording of this, episode 2, it is December 18th, 2025, which is the 56th anniversary / birthday of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby's one and only outing as 007. We got some fancy graphics this time around. As I said in episode 1, it's going to be not a learning curve, but just going forward, we're going to establish the elements of the show, and just long story short, it's going to get better as it goes along. I'll get less of a squeaky chair in my little closet here if you're watching on video. But yeah, On Her Majesty's Secret Service premiered in London on the 18th of December 1969. A film, I've got some facts here, had a $7 million budget and made $82 million worldwide, which is a fair chunk, especially if you consider the cost of tickets and whatnot back then and inflation. But yeah, if you watch my previous episode 1 of the Bond Minute, I talked about my rewatching of all the Bond films, and obviously my sort of like falling back in love with the franchise itself. And one thing I mentioned is that a lot of the older films that I disliked, or not disliked, but liked less back then, sort of like when I was like 13 onwards, I'm actually appreciating and enjoying a lot more now, and some are vice versa as well. But On Her Majesty's Secret Service was one of those. Sort of like back then, I considered it the red-headed stepchild of the franchise, but I think that was just my immature brain of like, oh, Lazenby only done one film. There wasn't sort of like as information as freely out there as it is now. We had like some books and things like that, and the internet was in very early days. I got into Bond in like 1997. But yeah, and obviously the 13-year-old mind doesn't like to dive as deep as it does now, especially with limited resources back then. But that was a very harsh way to look at it, especially on my rewatch. I've been enjoying it, and I've been appreciating it a lot more, especially with the knowledge we know now about like all the behind the scenes stuff and things like that. So yeah, and one thing I am sort of like really enjoying and liking about Her Majesty's Secret Service now is the theme song. I'm actually, it's on quite a regular rotation when I'm working. I do think that is like one of the best themes from all the Bond films, and especially David Arnold did the remixes. That remix album, is it Shaken and Stirred or something like that? I really enjoyed his remix of it. It sort of like goes quite hard. So if you haven't seen that already, go check that out, or listen to that, should I say. But yeah, what's been going on? It's a week before Christmas, probably less than that by the time you're watching it, or Christmas already passed. Growing up, especially like, probably before I was born as well, James Bond, watching James Bond on Christmas Day or around Christmas has always been a good Christmas tradition, or a Christmas tradition for many. So it's always, indirectly tied into Christmas for a lot of people, especially like myself. And this Christmas, my Bond movie of choice, which I'm going to watch with the family, is going to be Casino Royale. Not necessarily for the fact that it's not my favourite Bond film. It's far from. It's a really good Bond film. But upon my rewatch, and actually of all the films recently, and also my daughter who's studying film, one of the films there she's studying, and she's actually got her mock exam for it today, probably right now while I'm recording this, is one of the films she studied is Skyfall. Which she's watched like 3 or 4 times now, but she's not watched any of the other Daniel Craig movies. They've watched they watched Live and Let Die and a few other Bond films, but that's the only Craig film she watched. And my wife hasn't seen any of the Craig Bond films, so we said, why don't we have a little Craig marathon? Because she watched the Pierce Brosnan films with me on my recent rewatch, and I've watched GoldenEye a few times and Tomorrow Never Dies a few times over the last few years anyway. But so Casino Royale is going to be our Christmas Bond movie of choice. Speaking of Bond at Christmas, I wanted to point out my recommended Bond gift of the year. I know it's definitely too late to order this because my recommended Bond gift of the year is now sold out also. But it's just going to be my top gift of the year as a Bond fan for Bond fans, and many of you probably already have this or have it sort of put on your list and purchased for you already for Christmas. So one thing I discovered in the recent months is thanks to the Bond Experience and other channels, and that is the London Stock Exchange. Because one thing I've been doing as well since I turned 40 and all of that is like, man, I need to stop dressing like, not necessarily like changing my dress style and that, but getting back into Bond and hitting 40. I always just wear like my gym gear or some baggy t-shirts and some shorts. I wear shorts like 11 months of the year, so I was like, I want to feel good about myself. Like when we go out, like me and my wife, we have a dinner every month, and I always struggle to sort of like find something nice to wear. I don't want to just go out because I work from home and things like that. I just have like one outfit, like my gym wear / sit at home while working and things like that. Obviously, if I have a work meeting, like a video call and things like that, I'll I'm not at the point where I'll bang out one of those tuxedo shirts so it looks like I've got a t-shirt on that looks smart, but it's not. But I'll put like a smart jumper and all of that. But as in terms of like full dress wear, I was struggling in terms of like, I just want to, feel good about myself and dress smart. And obviously Bond is a fashion inspiration to all, if not many men, especially ones like myself at this age. So due to them other channels, I know like the Bond Experience, things like that, they do a lot of videos and a lot of content based on Bond fashion. I've been watching that, so I've been kind of getting into a lot of that stuff. I recently bought the Bond the peacoat, the Skyfall peacoat. I didn't actually buy the Empil brand one, because obviously that's really expensive. I've got 2 kids, so I can't be banging out that much money. But I did buy Next's version of it, which is a company in the UK, which is still very good quality and things like that. And even to the point now where I'm like, I'm 5'9", but my arms are not the longest. So I was like, what? I took it to a tailor. I got the sleeves took in and things like that. And yes, my image library doesn't want to play ball, but I've just done like a little display capture. So this is the peacoat that I bought from Next. It was £99. It's actually really good quality, really thick and warm. I had the arms tailored in. This is the Back to the Future musical about a week and a half ago in London. It's really warm because it was a cold day, so it's a great jacket. And as I was talking about, this was at my running club's Christmas do. I never would have like sort of worn an outfit like this before. So I'm sure like many of you, your wardrobes and that have become inspired by Bond fashion. So I'm sure slowly over time there's going to be more and more Bond brands in particular slipping into my wardrobe and my daily wear. So cool. My nerdism of Bond has leveled up now. So so what else is going on? Completely forgotten the point where I was getting to. yeah, my recommendation was the London Stock Exchange, which I'd stumbled across thanks to the Bond experience. Don't get it mixed up with the London Stock Company. um, so especially if you're like recommending people to, obviously Christmas will be gone now, but like birthday gifts and things like this, make sure you get the right one. But my number one recommendation for Christmas of 2025 was the GoldenEye anniversary set. I think this is around about £45. And you get the set, you get like the DB5 pair, you get the Bond jumping, bungee jumping off of the dam, you got Boris there. And it's just a really cool, smart set, and it comes in this nice like presentation box. But obviously, as of the point of this recording, that set is sold out. So as a backup set, which I'll probably purchase at some point next year. Obviously, my birthday's not until September, so I don't want to wait until then. But this is the Goldfinger 60th anniversary set, and obviously that's still on sale at the moment, still in stock. I'm not sure if it had sold out and they'd restocked it, but this is definitely a secondary option to purchase. You've got the Goldfinger Golfin, you've got another DB5, you've got Pussygalores plane, or what they call them, the flying something or another. I can't remember at this point, but this is a really smart set, and I will be purchasing this or acquiring this soon. But yeah, so get yourself over to the London Stock Exchange if you want to get a cool Bond gift. If you're watching this right away and you're struggling for a gift, and they do next day delivery, not that it might not arrive before Christmas, but hey, it's still cool to have. But in terms of everything else Bond, there's been a hell of a lot of First Light stuff coming out, and I think I mentioned last time I want to kind of do that separate, although I want to talk about Bond games as well in this series. I want to keep First Light separate at the moment until we sort of get a little bit more closer to the release date, because there's just so much, like in the last week alone, there's just been so much stuff coming out. I don't want it to overload this. I want to keep that separate and then sort of wean it in the closer we get to the release date. But everything on that just looks so cool, and I can't wait to play it. But other than that, there was recently, the beginning of the month, rumours flying around and some reports that Callum Taylor was now the bookies' favourites to play James Bond in the new Amazon era, which I didn't see many negatives around it, and which is good, because I think with like Aaron Taylor-Johnson and things like that, who was the previous favourite, there was a few ums and ahs, but in my opinion, Callum Turner is a really good option for me. I recently, what's he been in? I recently watched him in the Masters of the Air, which was a great series. Spielberg and Tom Hanks' World War II series they do. Obviously, they started with Band of Brothers, which was the the D-Day landings and marching into Germany during World War II. Then they did the Pacific, which was the Pacific Theatre against Japan, and now this was the Masters of the Air, was obviously the American bomber squads who set up base in England, and which was, there was a lot of them actually quite near where I live, and this was filmed quite near to where I lived as well. So he was great in that, and he had a really great rapport with Austin Butler, who's obviously famous for playing Elvis in the biopic. But it'd be nice to. He's only about 35. So it'd be cool to see like a young Bond, because obviously the hype around First Light and things like that, having this cool younger Bond storyline is definitely new-ish, or like definitely something that's appealing now to Bond fans. As much as myself would want like Henry Cavill. I would like to see that younger Bond, and that's what appeals to me a lot about the First Light story and things like that. And having Callum Turner play that, if it is true, would be good. I feel like he's a good actor, and I think he could pull that off. I've got two things that I do want to say on it though. Why not? They had such a good sort of like working relationship and such good chemistry. Why not bring in Austin Butler as a young Felix? I mean, his star structure now. Austin Butler's or his stature is way too high now for sort of like a secondary character like that. But I think that would be great. But one thing, if we're going in terms of like a younger Bond, I mean, is it just me, or could you could almost see Callum as a younger Timothy Dalton Bond? There's a lot of similarities there between the two, and just seeing him in some of the roles that he's done, he could easily pull that kind of Timothy Dalton characteristics into his Bond, which would be cool. But obviously Timothy Dalton now would be too old to sort of play that like older version of Bond, and in sort of like parallel to Callum's younger Bond. And again, we're way past the Timothy Dalton era to kind of call back to that as well. We've had Brosnan and Craig since then. So, but hey, it was just a cool thought. Food for thought, and but yeah, other than that, I feel like I said in the last one, we was going to keep this like fortnightly, 2 to 3 weekly, but as I'm figuring out the format, I'm thinking like maybe I can do this a little bit more regularly, especially since between this one and episode 1 there's been a little bit more of a gap. But I'm probably going to fill it up with some other things as well, like fill the episodes up with that as well. So I mean, what Bond are you planning to watch this Christmas, or on Christmas Day in particular? What Bond gifts have you been eyeing up, or even at the point of watching this, if you've already watched, or Christmas has already been and gone, let me know what Bond gifts you got, and what Bond you watched over Christmas, and how many vodka martinis did you have on Christmas Day and Boxing Day and New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, all and in between them 2 days as well. But I'll check in with you guys on the next one. Please follow the Bond Minute on Instagram, as well as my own Instagram handle, which will be down below. Check out the other videos. I'm currently playing through 007 Legends on the channel as well, on Xbox 360, which the concept of the game is really good. The execution of the game, not so much, and I say that purely all in terms of the controls. It is just one of the most frustratingly clunky video games I've ever played, especially since like 007, GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64 was so fluid and so smooth. But yeah, I'm enjoying the story element of that game, nothing else. But yeah, check out the videos to that, and I'll catch you guys and gals on the next one, and I'll speak to you soon.